Brodes Media.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Open Ice Hits. The Montreal Canadiens force a Game 5. They stay alive. One of our biggest fears, Durso, did happen. One is that they were going to get swept. That did not happen. Two, though, was the Lightning go up 3-0, and then the inevitable somewhat sinks in. And is it possible that we are there right now? I think it is.
All right, so hold on a second, because before we really get into these games, I got to call back something from a previous episode from our last show. Because first of all, it came up during the game last night, for one. And two, I did more digging and found out we kind of glossed over these two people a little more than we should have, because we were talking about, for people who don't know, previous episode, we were getting ourselves maybe prepared for what Game 4 could have been, because it was 2-0. We talked about Pat Maroon being a back-to-back Cup champion with two different teams. Could be like it was the third guy to ever win 3 in a row with two different teams, right?
Yeah.
And we looked up the other two guys. I don't know if we realized it. Ed Litzenberger was the captain of that 1961 Chicago Blackhawks team, by the way. And Eddie Girard was one of the members of the first class of the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1945. So maybe we shouldn't have just glossed right over those two. Someday, and I mean someday, whenever someday may be, when I actually take the trip to the Hockey Hall of Fame that I need to take, because I don't know how I haven't done it in my entire life to this point, but when I do, I'm finding his plaque and I'm sending you a picture.
I was cracking up though, because the graphic on the feed
it was
during
perfect.
the broadcast, it really was. I mean, the fact that we dove into that last episode without even really properly doing it. We're like, let's just kind of mess around here and see what pops up. And then
exactly.
Maybe
but
someone listened and was like, Open Ice Hits last show said that.
Well, that's why I tweeted it exactly like that. If you listened to us, then you already knew that answer.
Pretty damn funny. It
was really funny.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So where exactly are we picking this up? We more focused on 4 at this point, or are we focused on how we got there? Because I've got stuff on both. So wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'll start, I guess, with Game 4 and how it kind of all transpired. It was pretty clear that everybody felt the same way. You could hear it in Keith Jones's voice, Patrick Sharp's voice, anyone talking about the game. The Lightning were going to finish this off within 3 minutes of overtime with that power play. And then I watched the power play, and it looked so dysfunctional. There were a few moments. I think it was Tyler Johnson that had that backhander in the slot that Carey Price made the save. A couple minor looks here and there, but they never truly settled down. And while you praise the Lightning's power play because they've been one of the strongest power plays all season long, I felt everyone was discrediting what the Montreal Canadiens penalty kill was all about for a majority of, their run here. So I figured if they killed this off, it's Canadiens. If they kill this off, it's Canadiens. And when I saw the sloppiness involved, I started thinking in my brain, yup, this is totally going to happen. Even after that 2-on-1 that Vasilevsky made the save.
There's a lot to get into then from everything you just said then. Because first of all, yes, I was in the same position. I texted you and said, I'm feeling a Kucherov goal coming here. And I tweeted it too, but I added something in the tweet that I didn't text you, which was if Montreal kills it off and gets a chance, I wouldn't be shocked if Cole Caulfield's involved in this in some way because he's risen to the occasion already. And he didn't score the goal, but he's right there in the middle of that play, keeping it alive until Josh Anderson gets back into it and is able. And again, credit to Josh Anderson, too, as it was mentioned on the broadcast, for not just blowing by the net and giving up on the play. He stays involved. The best opportunities I think that Tampa Bay had on that power play was toward the end, because you texted me, you go, this is kind of sloppy. This isn't looking good. And like right after that was when the shorthanded chance for Suzuki happened. And then the other end, you had Stamkos and Point getting good looks. And it looked like I thought Braden Point had the game on a stick right there.
Oh, he was the one in the slot? It wasn't Johnson? Okay, yeah.
Point. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he was the one in the slot because I was a little surprised, honestly. I thought that, there were 2 minutes left in that power play. So they're a minute into the overtime. And they get the second unit out there, and I knew what they were going for, which was the last minute of this is going to be the top guys. And they got them out there. I think they got them out there after a stoppage with about 1:13 left in that power play. and really didn't get the look until 20 seconds left. And there it was. And it was like, well, there we go. We know both goalies are up to the task so far. They're ready to go. And to me, what was such a standout about the penalty kill is who's in the box at the time. This is your captain. It seemed like when they came out in overtime after kind of the first minute of the penalty, being a 4-minute penalty, being at the end of the third period, then felt a little more like survival. And then the last three of it, the first three of overtime, felt like determination. We're going to get this done for our captain because this is not the way to go out this year. And that's what they did. And then they go right down.
That was a heavy high stick to the face, dude.
It
was
heavy.
And
you just knew, like, as soon as you saw, it was Palat, I believe. As soon as you saw Palat go down, and then you see the blood right away, and you instantly are starting to think of it. And as soon as they showed the replay and whose stick it was, you go, oh my God, it's a 4-minute penalty. It's a 4-minute penalty to one of the best power plays we've ever seen, and I almost wasn't sure if it was going to make it to overtime at that point because it was setting up that way. And give them credit. They hung in there. They stood their ground. They got it done. Carey Price was a big part of it as much as the rest of the penalty killers were. I think Price was a really key part of it in the last minute of regulation because they looked dangerous during that last minute. And then from there, Montreal tightened up big time and then got what they needed to.
Yeah, and it just felt the Lightning were finding ways to, and I know if you look at any goal in hockey, you could probably tie it back to a mistake made by the other team. But when you have a lead late in a Stanley Cup game and you're at home and you know your backs are against the wall and Tyler Toffoli doesn't get the puck deep, and here comes a beautiful pass by Joseph to Pat Maroon, of all people, going back door. And even the first goal, it was Petrie with the play in his own zone, tries to make an outlet pass, which I thought was just absolutely absurd, which turns into McDonough making that beautiful pass, and they score. Your backs are against the wall. You have an opportunity to maybe hold on to a lead, and then you just make these simple, somewhat boneheaded mistakes. I mean, hockey 101 mistakes. I don't know where Petrie was going with that pass. It was a horrible angle to try to attempt that. And with Toffoli, get pucks deep. I mean, like I said, I know you can always probably go back to something that generated another team's rush, but those are simple, basic mistakes that can't happen. This Lightning team will find a way to make you pay with those ones.
So funny you bring that up. So I'll go back to the first goal that you mentioned, not the Maroon goal, the Gaudreau goal, because yeah, it's not only is it a horrible mistake, but we were about 2 minutes away from me putting out there on Twitter, this is one Montreal goal away from being over because that's how well Carey Price was playing. You were getting that performance. It was almost like as you were watching this, because it was a clinching scenario for Tampa, you're almost expecting Andrei Vasilevsky to be perfect. And they get the first goal. So now you're looking the other end and you're going, Carey Price is giving you I'm not letting it in tonight. I'm not letting a goal in. So I'm making sure we get to at least to game 5. And we were 2 minutes away from me feeling like I was like I was comfortable with, I'll give them one, but that's all they're going to get. And at 2-0, this game would be over. And I felt the same way again when it was 2-1 for a little bit in the third period. And you're right. Everything has been, and I mean, I'm going to tap back into game 3 for a moment here because from game 3, Tampa scores 6 goals. One of them's an empty netter. For the other 5, I have a reason why each one was scored and every single one is a mistake somehow. Unnecessary icing call, delay a game penalty, bad line change, a bad pinch by Petrie and an odd man rush, Eric Gustafson turnover right up the middle. And then you do it again.
A classic as a Philadelphia Flyers fan.
Sure. But then, like you just said, it's an outlet pass by Petrie up the middle. Turnover. It's, again, it's not getting the puck deep to Foley. Both times ends up in your net. They capitalize on everything. And it's been, basically, this has been the formula for the entire series. And one of the things that I've noticed a lot, and I didn't actually put it back in my notes, I had it in my head during the game, was Montreal's been really successful in this playoff. And every team they've played against has been guilty of this. They'll make a mistake somewhere. Every team that Montreal has played, they'll make a mistake, and it will allow Montreal to actually get the odd man rush going the other way. And Tampa just always seems to have that one guy back as the final line of security before it's a breakaway, before it's a 2-on-1. Like there was, I forget which situation it was, but I believe there was a blocked shot somewhere, and it looks like it bounces out, and you go, "Uh-oh, look, here they come. It's going to be a 2-on-1." And then Hedman's already backing over, picking it up before you even had time to think about it. He's in your screen.
Or Vasilevsky's there to shut the door if there is that one mistake or two mistakes
Sure,
where
but
there is
like,
that counter.
But most of the time I'm like ahead of the red line at that point. So I'm looking at Tampa on the attack. Here comes like before a block shot can even go the other way and they can jump on that 2-on-1 or maybe it looks like you're thinking for a second, oh, here comes a breakaway. Nope, never mind. Here comes Hedman over. Here comes McDonough over. Like somebody's back there. They are so disciplined in their structure that you're not giving Montreal the chances where they really thrive upon in this playoff. And maybe that's what worked in overtime, quite honestly. And I know like overtime's no different than regulation in the playoffs. It's still 5-on-5, but Anderson gets a step, and that's the difference. It's the step that he gets going back on that rush that allows you to have numbers in some capacity, and it turns it into a play that looks more dangerous at that point. There just aren't that many of those for Montreal. And if they don't capitalize on basically every single one of them that they get, then it's a missed opportunity. And it felt the same way during special teams with them throughout this series. If they get a power play, then you better score because you're not going to get many situations like this. And Tampa's just wearing you down with the way that they are pouncing on mistakes. And it's what makes them such a great team.
Yeah, for sure. I thought Josh Anderson obviously had a great game as he was putting the puck in the net. He was flying all around. Here's one thing I won't do, though, because this is a narrative that's thrown around the NHL world right now. This is why it's bad for the Canadiens getting to where they did. This is why it's bad to have that underdog go so far because, let's be realistic, this isn't the most fun Stanley Cup final in the world, but I think that's such a horrendous way of looking at it. So what, were they not supposed to come back against the Toronto Maple Leafs in round one? Were they not supposed to sweep the Jets? Were they not supposed to beat the Vegas Golden Knights in that series? Like, they did their job going up against a powerhouse in Tampa Bay, while Vegas probably would have been a more competitive series, a more entertaining series. You can't knock a team for going through those three series before and getting there. They won. They won fair and square, and Tampa's probably going to kick the shit out of majority of teams they play when they're $17, $18, $19 million over the cap with this much of a unit on their roster. So, I don't know. I mean, I know that there's a lot of fans unhappy, and they look at it as this is bad for the sport when such an underdog goes so far. But I don't know if that's truly the reason why it's the way it is, or if it's a combination between, sure, I mean, they're not the best team ever, and they are super young, and maybe some of that is playing a role into this, but I can't discredit what they did and say that this is horrible, because I enjoyed the hell out of every single moment they had prior to this, which factors into my excitement level watching the Stanley Cup playoffs in general as well.
I go back. I don't remember if it was after game one or if it was before the series started. John Cooper said nobody flukes their way to this point in the playoffs. You just don't. And that's a good attitude to take, honestly. It's another reason why I really like John Cooper as a coach, because he really keeps it real the entire time through. He talks about his players in such a way. He credits the opponents the right way. He's not this type of guy who's out there throwing around stuff that can anger people in a way. Like, he really is just about the game. He's that student of the game who puts everything into perspective for you. And that's why when we talked about it in the last show, when he sits there and goes, I haven't even had time to think about in the moment right now what it would be like to win 2 of these in 9 months, right? Like, I believe him because he's so focused. They want to get the job done, and they're going to look at this game and that 4-minute power play from the end of regulation into overtime as a missed opportunity to win. They weren't sitting there and I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter and a lot of stuff around about how Tampa's mayor was having a huge celebration because they lost game 4 because the families couldn't go to Canada. Whatever. They didn't lose that game on purpose. That's the way it went.
Right.
Montreal got a break. They got a bounce. They got the puck in the right position. They worked hard for that goal. There will be a game 5, and you better believe that Tampa's going to go out thinking, this is the shot to end it. We got to go out and end it. And that's how they're going to approach that game for sure. I mean, I didn't get a chance to, because by the time I did, we got hit with the, I've called it a flyer special every so often, which is the get out played for the majority of the first period, still score the first goal anyway. And that was really what I was able to take away from the first period. And that was the first tweet I sent out during the game. But right before that, as it was going on, I almost tweeted out, and I didn't get a chance to before the goal was scored. Tampa Bay is not doing a very good job of throwing this game. like everybody said that they should, or like the mayor said they should. Like if they're supposed to be throwing this game so they can win on home ice, they're not doing a very good job if they're going out shooting a team 10-0 to start.
Yeah,
the
they
game.
were dominating.
That's a team that knew this thing could be over tonight and was trying their best to do it. And for everything that went on in the first 3 games, what you got in the first period was vintage Carey Price. And not to say that everything in the first 3 games was his fault completely, but he hadn't had the best series to that point. And that's one of the key differences in this game. He gives up 2 goals. There was nothing he could do about either goal. They were just 2 brilliant plays that left wide open nets for the goal scorers.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to that first period, you're right. I mean, you're talking about physical dominance, getting to every loose puck in the offensive zone, winning the puck battles once they got in the corners. They were cycling the puck, moving the puck well, finding areas. I mean, they really were exploding. And there was a bit of me thinking, really? Don't do this to me. And then once the Habs scored, all right, there was some energy there and all. But, yeah, you nailed it. That first part of the first period was just pure dominance. And I wondered how much of that went back to, you're young and you're just experiencing this firsthand. You're getting thrown into the fire and saying, okay, this is what it's like. You need to find a way to be able to handle this type of pressure. You got 2 more periods of this, 2 more plus, because the first period wasn't over. How are you going to handle this type of adversity? How are you going to handle this type of toughness? And, they held their own. Josh Anderson with the beauty there to kind of, start it all off. But that first 10 to 12, 14 minutes, I'm like, wow, They are buzzing.
The pass, by the way, from Suzuki on that Josh Anderson goal to start it off was outstanding. He's really special, and I don't know what level
did Vegas get? Oh, they got Pacioretty for him, right? He was a part of that Pacioretty deal.
Yeah.
So you definitely got your bang, your money back.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think because Suzuki was that original class for them, right? So that would have been like the first year they were in the league.
Or was it Tyler Glass? Didn't we do this before? Or no?
No. Cody Glass was one. Cody Glass was one of their draft picks.
That's right.
And he was the higher of. He was one of the higher. He was the highest one they had. Because Cody Glass went 6th overall, I believe, and then
I'm trying to think who the hell is Tyler Glass, but what I did was Tyler Glass now from the Rays, and I combined him with.
You started, I believe, you started to say Tanner Glass, which was that was a player. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I got 3 people all combined in my head.
You started to say, there you go. So. Yeah, so he's just, I don't know what level of superstardom he's really going to hit. I think he could be one of the, on that edge of it where he's one of those very good, maybe, he's not going to be the McDavid level guy. I'm not trying to go that far with it, but he could be a face for them for a long time, kind of right alongside of Caulfield, like we believe. Like he's got more, like Caulfield, we say the playmaking ability, but he's the scorer. Suzuki's got the playmaking ability, and he's two-way, and he's vision, like he's got it. He's really got it all. And that's going to help them tremendously. Speaking of youth, I want your take on this because we didn't mention it yet. Thoughts on Noah Sperry Kokoniemi for this game, him being a healthy scratch?
Yeah, I mean, look, we know how the Canadiens seem to think when it comes to this stuff. And to a degree, I always understood where they were coming from because in every sport, I want more veteranness and all. But I guess where I'm at with it is, it got you here. These young guns got you here. So ride or die with it. That's probably the approach I would have went with, where, you know what, if they're struggling, if they're having a hard time, realistically, they're probably going to. That's somewhat inevitable. That's how this game works. So if you think he's going to be part of your franchise for the long run and you're hoping to get back here again as you continue to go along here, if they do fall and end up losing this series, you want him to go through those painful moments and those losses. Although at the same time, to kind of counter myself, you still have a series to go. And if you think this player is hurting you more than he's helping you, you're not going to be satisfied with saying in the moment, maybe big picture, but in the moment, oh, well, it's okay if he makes a mistake and we lose because we're going to need him down the road. You can't have that mindset either. So if they truly thought he was doing that much of a disservice, then scratching him's the right move. But I don't know. He also helped you get there. So where do you draw that line?
when I believe he was also benched for most of the third period of game one, which see, I look at it and go, how much can you screw with this kid before it really gets into his head? Like, and it is a third overall pick. So tread lightly if you're Montreal with how you play with this kid. I thought, like, to your point about trying to make a change and change some things up, I thought they nailed it with the defensive side of it. Changing
Yes.
out that third pairing, I thought they nailed that call. And for Romanov to get a goal, also on top of it, like,
Yeah.
who saw that coming? Welcome to the Stanley Cup Final.
Did you see his facial expression?
Oh, it was
like you
great,
saw
though,
a
but
ghost.
But that's exactly what it's all about. That's what's so fun about it. Like, it was great. But I thought, like, obviously, I thought they nailed it because there's a lot of defensemen. Like, honestly, the back end has struggled pretty heavily in this series for Montreal. I mean, I haven't thought Edmonton's had a great series. Sherrod hasn't had a great series. Petrie hasn't had a great series. And basically, it's not to say that they're getting exposed in any way. I think that they've helped carry this team a long way as much as Carey Price has, because you need that back end to be supportive. And so in one sense, it could be running out of gas or injury setting in or whatever that we don't know about, for one. And then just what Tampa does to teams too. I mean, they can force the defense into mistakes, and when you force your defenseman, the opposition's defenseman anyway, into those mistakes and then can capitalize on them, sure, it looks glaring. And but I think you made a necessary change with both of those guys. It was both of them, with Kulak and with Romanov, just because you needed to change something up to see what you could get out of it. You're still going to roll heavy with the top four at that point. We're going to get that healthy dose of Weber and Sherratt, and we're going to get the healthy dose of Petrie and Edmondson at that point, because Edmondson's a good vet. But you needed something. You needed to just inject something else into this at this point, because it was really just getting ugly with how many mistakes you were making. And I mean, look, we've already talked about it. The turnover by Gustafsson, that really, he was involved in 2 of those goals realistically. And, at some point in time, you've got to move aside from that. You can't have complete blind loyalty to the same guys over and over again when it's just not working out.
Yeah,
and
especially a player like that too. I mean, it's not like he's a player that has been so damn excellent forever. I mean, he gets picked up when he did for a reason. Now, something we haven't hit on yet, which is just absurd, the amount of times it happened. And Carey Price deserves all the praise in the world, and so does his best friend. Because Kucherov there in the third period, he had a wide – you saw it, but they showed the replay too. I mean, how quick it happens. Puts his stick up, puck's there within half of a second, and it hits the post. Victor Hedman cranked one. He thought he scored. He actually put his hands up. It ended up cranking the post. The amount of posts – there was one right before a period ended when the Tampa Bay Lightning were ready to prowl and get that bingo. Then that hit the post. I mean, the amount of posts the Lightning hit was just absurd. And, great chances, great looks, and that's the difference. Just a half a centimeter off could be the difference, but it happened a lot. Not just a little, a lot in Game 4.
Yeah, Carey Price needs to thank the posts, for sure. That was part of the reason why I thought Kucherov had one coming in overtime, because when he got that close, I'm like, he's poised for one right now. He really is. I mean, game of inches, right? Maybe less than that, game of centimeters, like you said. Like, that's how it breaks sometimes, and they came close an awful lot. I didn't think the Hedman one was in at first, honestly.
Me neither.
I didn't think it was in, but his reaction made me think differently for a second, just because you're going, well, you seem really sure about it, and you took the shot, so I'm going to assume you saw something different where you are than from where I did from.
Dude, how about his clapper that ended up hitting point in the body?
I cringed so hard.
Oh, man.
I honestly thought he was done after that, because
he came back out though.
Oh, I know, but like, I thought he was done with just the way he went down. I'm going, oh no, you just took 100 miles an hour right off.
Now they stopped the play, and I was a little surprised. Maybe because they thought the same thing. Maybe they thought he was truly insanely hurt, and it was that bad. But I thought it was a weird spot once he got up and started grimacing and limping to the bench.
Right.
It's a call a dead there. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. Advantage Montreal Canadiens if you have friendly fire, someone goes down. To stop the play, maybe I'm being a little too harsh because it was a heavy clapper, but
right.
I don't know. I don't love stopping the play there. But if in the moment, in that second, if on the ice they thought it was that horrible where he was going to need some significant help, well then sure, you don't want to mess around with it. But I thought it was a bit of a quick whistle.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it didn't faze me one way or the other. I knew I had seen what had happened, so at least, like, I generally, and maybe it's for the number of games I've watched, whether it's in the arena or on TV, I generally have reactions to things like that. If I can tell it's a foot, it's a leg, it's a knee, something like that, when it's a heavy shot like that. I mean, obviously, if it's up here, it's worse.
Sure,
But when
definitely.
you see that kind of reaction, I have a reaction from whether it 300 feet away or miles away in the living room. Like I have a reaction to it too, and you start like that's when you start to wonder where like how is that guy doing? Like is everything okay? Your focus turns to that. They had another one in one of the other games. Who was it that was it Yanni Gord maybe? I can't remember who it was. Tried to kind of lay a hit and he missed because I can't remember which Canadian he was trying to hit. Maybe it was Weber, and Weber sidestepped it. So he just hit the boards with the back. Oh, it's Coleman, Blake Coleman.
That's who it was. I'm trying to think because I knew it wasn't Gordon.
I knew it was that line.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I knew it was one of those types of guys though. And Blake Coleman tried to lay a hit and basically whiffed because he got sidestepped and just fell into the boards. And they stopped play right after that too because of the way it looked when he went down. And he ended up coming back basically 2 shifts later, something like that.
Yeah.
2 or 3 shifts later. So it's like, okay, and then I don't. That wasn't the game he scored in. It was game 2 we were talking about. So he did score later. He had the empty netter at the end of the game. So yeah, he did come back and score. But yeah, that's like it's happened a couple different times in different scenarios. I don't really overthink that stuff too much.
Yeah, it's not insane. Game changing.
And it's a feel thing. I think it's a feel thing for the officials. If you see something and it looks concerning, better to stop it than to let it keep going, I guess.
Are you okay with their officiating so far? We had like 97 guys in the box yesterday at one point, and then you couldn't get the stoppage of play. So now they're getting stuck. Yeah. They're getting stuck in the box forever. But I don't have any issues that to this point. This is the crucial part of the season, and sometimes that gets heavily criticized, even more times than others, which is crazy because I feel like we're always yapping about the refs. But for the most part, I think they've handled things pretty well here.
I haven't had any egregious issues with them in this series.
Right.
The playoffs, look, there's stuff that gets missed. There's things where they need to call more, call less, whatever. And look, I'm not going to sit there.
To be fair, there was that play. Who ended up getting that penalty? It might have been Edmonton in their own defensive zone where it was barely any.
The slashing call?
Yeah, the slashing call. I didn't like that one. That one was a little soft for an NHL Stanley Cup game, but not anything to the point where we lose our head and, it starts going viral.
No, I can tell you why you didn't like it then. You didn't like it because you see that happen 5 more times a game and it doesn't get called. So why is it a penalty there and it's not the 5 other times? If anybody else does it, that's where people get upset with it. Like, I don't know if you happen to catch this on Twitter, but Gary Bettman did an interview. It was on CBC, I guess. So this was only in Canada, but the clip made its way over to Twitter where he basically went full defense of the officials, full defense of the Department of Player Safety. And literally the words that he said were, the Department of Player Safety has been consistent. George Barris does a great job. And I sat there and I went, yeah, you've been real consistent these playoffs. Good. Try again. They absolutely have not been consistent. They absolutely have not done the best job they could in a lot of ways. And, the officiating has been what it is. I don't know. Like, I don't know how you fix that completely, fix the idea that there's gamesmanship involved, because there is a little bit, obviously. I mean, we had that conversation back when the Tim Peel hot mic incident happened, and you go here and you hear a guy say, I had to do it because I had to get one in for them. Like, that's how you like your league's officials to run the game. And what happens if that's happening? Crazy. And is that happening in a playoff game and we don't know about it? I mean, like, here's a great example for you, because I happened to sit down ahead of game 3. I hadn't done this yet. And I'm like, you know what? These things, I keep getting emails about it. I see it on Twitter sometimes. I'm like, I'll sit down and I'll watch all the episodes at this point. I started to watch the Quest for the Cup episodes that are on ESPN Plus. And I'm watching, and there is a clip from one of the episodes that goes back to the previous series. It goes back to the Islanders Lightning series. And that play with Braden Point on Varlamov, he plows into the net. He got pushed.
Big time.
And they call a penalty on Braden Point. And I don't know how Steven Stamkos held his cool listening to the explanation, how the official says, I just didn't like that play because I'm trying to protect the goalies. I don't know how he kept his cool. But he literally says, I understand. And I don't know how he did it, because if you're watching
just
that,
a veteran at that point, knowing that it's all
I
bullshit,
guess so, because but the explanation was just garbage. It was absolute garbage, and because it just and there was like it was like as if they ignored the push and just went, well, I don't like it. I got to protect the goalies, so I don't
Yeah.
like that play.
Well,
He
you know
goes
what?
in.
At some point, and I don't want to get too sucked into officiating. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to do that, but I'll
Yeah,
make the last point on it. It's like, I don't know. Is that just a while us watching clearly sees the push from behind, and that play was just horrible that it was called the way that it was. How much of that is the league saying anytime a goalie is hit to a
right.
degree, it ends up getting called? So
It
there's plenty of
definitely
time
it
to
definitely is.
fix
But
that.
like the bottom line, like I believe one of the officials during the clip says, "I know he got pushed, but it's the way he goes in, and I don't like it or whatever." And you hear Stamkos in the beginning of the argument even sit there and say that he's the best player in the world right now. He's not trying to take him out, and you believe him because you're right. Like at that rate, he was scoring every game.
Yeah,
So of
yeah.
course he's doing it, and then they still came back, and I think they came back and won that game still somehow. I don't remember exactly, but or maybe they didn't. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of those games in the middle of the series. It wasn't game
Yeah.
one, but
Yeah.
but
Regardless.
regardless, it doesn't matter. It was like, but it was just the way that the whole thing went off, and you're like looking, and it's when you have those mic'd up incidents because the official was mic'd up through the whole thing. You see that, and then you almost like that's what starts this buzz about it. Like, are you okay with this type of stuff as a league? That you're okay with them just making that call because, and it was completely 1,000% based on the end result, not how it happened.
Well, a lot of it too
You know,
is, you're not just going to start throwing everyone under the bus right now. Whether he's thinking it or not,
no,
you
I
just
know.
protect the league and then you
Well,
move on from there.
exactly. Well, and look, I'm like a lot of people said, there had to have been agreed upon parameters of that interview to go into, and that's why certain topics were left off and things like that. Like you're getting the commissioner of the league, and it's a one-on-one, and it's during an intermission in the Stanley Cup Final. Don't you think that they're gonna kind of vet whatever questions you have before
Absolutely.
anything? Like, of course they are.
Yeah.
So you kind of like it. Don't criticize the network that did it for not asking about certain things when they had to have a set of guidelines they had to follow to just even get the interview.
Yeah, it's very true.
And I get it. If that's the way, if the right thing to do is sit there and go, you know what, maybe then bypass the interview and say that the reason there's not an interview is because this, and this, then be that way. But then good luck getting him the next time too.
Yeah,
Like that's the other
exactly.
thing too. Like it's a lot of save face, but whatever. Back to the games, back to the stuff
Yeah.
that matters.
Yeah, I
Like
do want to
I
touch
don't
on
love
this
I don't
because
love to talk about
yeah.
officiating not 24/7.
So with game 4 or game 5, I should say at this point.
Yeah.
I talked about this last show where the narrative changes so quickly. So right now, obviously back's against the wall and it's 3-1 going back to Tampa Bay, so it doesn't look pretty at all. But if somehow, some way, and it's not the biggest reach in the world, the Montreal Canadiens find a way to squeak out of Tampa and head back to Montreal, it changed it all. Like the feeling is a little bit different. They're at home now. What if they win? I mean,
Right.
the narrative changes so much with this victory, and if they were to win in game 5, and I'm going to look up what the odds are for this game to see where the line is because that will tell me something about it. It's an opportunity to change the narrative big time on this entire series. Because think about this. Let's say the Habs do win in Tampa, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning close it out in 6 in Montreal. It's not a short series anymore. How do we
Right.
perceive this series? It was closer than we thought it would have been. Maybe that excites us a little bit, that there's at least a couple more storylines. So my point basically is, there is an opportunity to change the narrative pretty heavy here with one win by Montreal.
Well, of course. And look, the best experience I can give you from looking at a series like this is when the Flyers were down 3-0 to Boston, and you kind of go through the range of emotions of how as they come back, right? When they win game 4, you almost kind of get like, and then here's an ironic twist for you. Game 4, when the Flyers won against Boston in 2010, before they played the Montreal Canadiens to go to the Cup final, was also an overtime win. So like you have to sweat it out. You're one goal away from being done for the year, and you're one goal away from keeping your season going, and you keep your season going. But it almost has a who cares vibe to it. It's important. You're going to get to live another day. You get to play another game, but it almost has a who cares vibe until you get through game 5 and you realize now you're just one win away from tying it up and going to winner take all. Like one does nothing right now to an extent. Like all it does is extend it one more game, but you still got to go out there and take care of it. And if you get like, to me, the start is critical here. If they come out and take a lead in this game 5, then people start thinking. You don't want to get ahead of yourself, but you kind of start to get ahead of yourself and think of the what ifs. At least that's what all of us do sitting at home. You start to think of the what ifs. Well, now they've got a lead. Maybe they win this game too. Maybe it goes back to Montreal for a game 6. And if it does, then you start to hinge on what a game 6 becomes, which it didn't matter how you got there, whether it was a Tampa winning game 5 that makes it 3-2, or it's Montreal keeping it alive again for another day. It doesn't matter how you get there. Game 6 is one team has a shot to send it to one more game to decide the whole thing, or one team's going to finish it off. And we'll see how it goes. I like that there's another game involved to it, obviously, because, I feel like it almost would have been, I don't want to call it would have been disappointing if the series would have been over in 4, but, it does speak to how good Tampa is. I mean, look, we can sit here and talk all we want to about all the stuff that they went through to get the team the way that it is and things like that. And I'm kind of holding thoughts on that until after the series is over, because I'm already tired of hearing about it, but I'm going to save my thoughts until we know that they've won it for sure, if that's the case. But you kind of get this sense of how these two teams, like, you wanted to see these two teams really line up and continue to play deep into it. And if this thing would have been over on July 5th and the expansion draft isn't until July 21st and the NHL draft isn't until the 23rd and 24th and free agency is 3 weeks away, like, you almost like this roll right into it 1 week away from all that activity. That's what people love about the offseason typically, is you're a week and a half away if you go 7 from everything else in the offseason taking place. And then you hit that month where nothing much happens in the offseason and it's about the players doing their own thing. But you want the activity as much as it can go. So it would have been disappointing if in 4 games this thing's over. We're waking up today, we're doing a show, it's July 6th, and we go, now we have until the 21st until this expansion draft happens. What now? Like, there's not as much to talk about in between those gaps.
At least, it looks like I see here, the Tampa Bay Lightning are minus 220 right now for this game. Now, I couldn't find it on the actual DraftKings Sportsbook app, so I went to maybe it's not up yet because they're trying to figure out some information. But I do see it here on, like, the ESPN feeds where they tell you at the bottom the favorite, and they're, I mean, look, they're at home to close out the Stanley Cup, and they're obviously the better team. So
I did the same thing well, not the exact same thing. I Googled it myself, and FanDuel's is minus 215 for Tampa, plus 180 for Montreal.
Okay.
Better than it was, I'll say that much, but,
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how it all plays out. You have an opportunity here to bring it back to Montreal with the victory, and they're it's like I'm contradicting myself. Half of me thinks, all right, let's be realistic. Who's the powerhouse team that's going to finish it off in 5? The other side is we've seen this Canadiens team have this special story all season long. Did they run out of juice, or is this really going to keep going where maybe they do push it back to Montreal and they do make this a bit more exciting and their young players do step up and Carey Price outduels Vasilevsky for a game where he sort of like how Vasilevsky stole one in game 2 and really stole one where he was the headline big time.
Sure.
Maybe Carey Price does that in game 5 and you bring it back. Like, part of me thinks there's a chance the Habs, not a chance, like part of me thinks it's going to happen where the Habs continue that amazing storyline. But in the back of my head, we know, look, one team is significantly more talented.
Sure,
so stop fooling yourself.
But it's like the Super Bowl. You get one shot at it, and it doesn't matter who the better one is on paper or not. Anything could happen. You got to just treat it like that. It's one game. It's just one. Like, you can't jump ahead. That was the whole. It was the whole thing. Even going into the game last night. You're down 3-0, but you can't win all 4 of them in one shot. So just focus on the first one. You got to just keep focusing on the one in front of you, and that's all they can do. And did they make mistakes that cost them? Yes. Did they make the same number of mistakes as previous games? No. They cut down on them significantly. They got bailed out a lot by Carey Price. If you get vintage Carey Price, you always have a shot. Let's see where this goes. I'd love it if it went to a game 6 also and kind of really got interesting. I don't have a lot of confidence that it will, just because I think that, let's do this way. The other thing that we haven't talked about much completely even on the show, let alone, because we haven't had to mention it, Tampa Bay hasn't lost back-to-back games in the playoffs in over a year. Hasn't happened this year. Didn't happen at all last year. It's got to happen 3 more times in a row for Montreal to win the Stanley Cup.
Wow, just put a
just
damper on my excitement here.
Oh, no,
thinking
no.
I'm just, no.
But
How dare you?
well, here's the thing. You're exactly right. If you get this Carey Price thing and he maybe steals you one here, because you got to know what you're walking into. On Wednesday night, you're walking into a building where fans did not get to see this team win the cup a year ago. Nobody did, but they really didn't. And the opportunity wasn't even there. It didn't exist. And this is a team that, over the course of the 16 years since they had won the first Stanley Cup, had been building towards something great. They continued to build this team the right way. They built in all different ways. They made a cup final and didn't win. Now they got theirs, but nobody was really there to experience it until they came back and had a parade, right? Now you're bringing that opportunity there. It's here. You're going to play in that building. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. And they're going to have anybody who's going to that game is going to go into it with the expectation this thing ends tonight. And I'm sure that the team feels that way. And that's what's up against the Montreal Canadiens. It's not to try to put a damper on anything. It's just the reality of the situation is that you're going to need your best from every single player that you have to find a way to keep this going. If you can, more power to you. I think if they do, I think we consider the Montreal Canadiens an outstanding team in their own right at that point. Like, it's not as much of a blowout as it seemed to be if they do.
Yeah, I agree. Even though it seemed it's inevitable at the same time, right? Because you just alluded to it 3 times, let alone 1 time. 3 times it needs to happen after a loss. I mean, that's absurd. It would be 4 straight losses. That's absurd to think that's going to happen. But we've seen crazier things in sports.
We have seen. And look, they brought it up multiple times on the broadcasts. The comeback from 3-0, how often it's happened. It's a grand total of 4 times in NHL history. It's only happened once in a Stanley Cup final. That was the first time it happened, and it was 1942. Like, it doesn't happen a lot at this stage. It just, and you're either going to write the greatest comeback story in history, or you're going to fall to a team that we all know how good they are. And I think that's where credit's due as well. This is not like Tampa Bay hasn't consistently been here on this level, if you will, for 6 years. From the cup final run in 15 to years of being the best team in the league, the best record, most points, winning a ton of games, even though they didn't win in the playoffs, to finally winning a cup, to now being right there to win a second one. This is one of the great cores that has been around in the last 20 years. And it doesn't happen. I mean, look, there hasn't been a sweep in the Stanley Cup Finals, and there still hasn't because of last night, since 1998. So that's not easy either. Like, it's not easy to sweep the Stanley Cup Final because the team you're playing is just as good typically. Yeah. And look, what Tampa has in talent, Montreal is trying to make up for in heart while they're young and while they're trying to make it through with some of the veterans who may not be key points to the playoff picture anymore, key points to their teams. They're not the number one guy anymore. They're doing the best they can. And if we can get one more Montreal win and just say, look, it went 6 games, and at the very least, then I think we came close to what we really set out to do in this series, which is have a good competitive series and go into a game feeling like anything can happen. And I think now we feel that way.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a great spot to kind of end it, and we'll wait to see how Game 5 plays out. So with that all said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Open Ice Hits, and we will see you next time.